Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Bookmarked, How the Great Works of Western Literature Fucked Up My Life, by Mark Scarbrough, narrated by Mark Scarbrough. Caution. A preface. Stop me if you've heard this one before. I found myself in Middlemarch, or Shakespeare saved my life. I call bullshit. Shakespeare never saved anyone, least of all me, although I sure wanted him to, ached for him to, somewhere in the marrow middle of my bones, and not only him, but all the other literary lions, like William Blake, Charlotte Bronte, and Henry James, now dead and mounted on the wall of Western culture. I got sucked in by their promises, the best things, a once upon a time that leads logically to the end. Characters who remain true to themselves despite what the plot throws at them, and desires that can be, ta-da, fulfilled, or at least understood. And something more tangible, too, down in my soul's basement, where the lights are dim and my hopes are laid away in boxes, I dreamed up a mad quest through the great books to find a home, to hear the crackle in a fireplace, to feel the weight of the covers at night, to breathe in and out all that's human and loved. Maybe I should have lowered my sights. Maybe only the main character gets home. Problem is, I've always felt like a minor one, the sidekick in a baggy sweater, the wiseacre 2 desks down, the guy who steps into a story, pushes it along in some vague way, and gets a one-liner as his reward. Years later, I heard he died in a car crash. Or maybe I asked so much from the great books because of my upbringing. When I was 10, my parents left the Southern Baptist Church. It is too liberal, they said, seemingly in unison, a plain-song truth-telling that led us to the upland pastures of American fundamentalism. Letters were sent, ministers were challenged, friends were lost. Don't get me wrong. I didn't latch onto the great books because they were forbidden. I never once read Under the Sheets with a Flashlight. Oh, sure, I had to skip the sex scenes and turn a blind eye to the notion that a liberal could be the good guy. Authors, what can you do? But nothing could befoul us. We were the true believers. We interpreted the Vietnam War, Nixon, and everything else as a story, a plot, rushing toward the apocalypse. The world sinned, it burned up, and we got out alive. Time was a straight line. Once I started reading, I discovered that novels, stories, plays, and even poems were alternate timelines, descending and ascending like a grid. They even got to the same places we believed in, just desserts or happily ever after. For a long time, I wanted to homestead on that scaffolding, even though it kept coming apart and slamming to the ground. I just wasn't myself without a book in my hand. Then I wasn't myself with one. Over time, books stopped being words outside my skin and became shadowy bits inside my brain, alternate versions of me telling their own stories. I morphed into a bizarre body of shredded volumes stalking the far country of my imagination. That's how I saw a long-dead poet manifest in front of me one night, how I got a job fishing monks out of gay bars, and ultimately why I tossed the person I loved over the cliff of insanity in a Hail Mary attempt to save my own brain from dissolving like a cheap paperback in a deluge. All of which is to say, be careful what you read. It can fuck you up too. But don't worry. There's a truth beyond the great works of Western literature. Life may seem linear, forceps to tombstone. Instead, the cosmos is round and elastic, spiraled and helixed. Atoms, galaxies, your DNA, they spin and come back around. I got out from under literature's curse. You can too. So this story is a comedy, like Dante's, if not so divine. But there's no good news without the bad, which is part and parcel of it. In books, in life, Even in the old poet's journey across the universe, the way up starts with the way down. Pulp Fiction in Dallas. I wish I could have read my own preface back in 1973. It was the last day of 7th grade, the end of May, and a Texas blast furnace outside. The heat leaked through the cinder block of my junior high. Dallas public schools weren't air-conditioned, so the teachers doused the lights and cranked up freestanding industrial fans. The weaklings passed out. My music teacher called them Yankees, although she was a grim German with a hound's underbite who pronounced it Yankees. She gave me vocal coaching because she prized my clear tone. Like Jesus, she said, not on cross. Earlier. Way earlier. Still a soprano, I was a year younger than my classmates. Not yet a teenager, but even more of a misfit. I was tracked-home gawky, with stringy bangs and sharp elbows, a knockoff Davy Jones in J.C. Penney knits. I could have been the nerd who wound up headfirst in the locker room trash can. Instead, I was the smarty pants who used his protractor to map the best arc for a football punt. I had a few things to do before summer break. First, my buddies and I hijacked social studies to take nominations for a mock awards ceremony. We'd worked up a list of most likelies to be handed out by popular acclaim. A guy who'd wallpapered his locker with posters of Karen Carpenter got most likely to be a bachelor at 30. A girl who'd barfed tetrazzini on her blouse captured most likely to replace Jan on the Brady Bunch. And by a unanimous vote, I won most likely to trip across a flat floor. I laughed and laughed, then blew off the next period English for my last vocal lesson. I took my position next to the upright piano and gave Brahms something or other my best. I didn't care what I sang. I just wanted to get it right. I'd gone whole hog for music after a field trip to hear the Dallas Symphony in 4th grade. Velvet seats, a stage of tuxes. I'd never seen anything like it. Then came the Brandenburg concertos. Within a few notes, my eyes focused on a middle distance between me and the stage. I could see spiraling filaments, playful, dazzling, like arcs of electricity. I also felt an unspeakable sadness well up in me. I knocked at my cheeks to get rid of the tears, then sat back and closed my eyes to shut out the show. Since I never wanted to feel that way again, I took up music to cure it. I focused on the notes. In the right order, they made sense, like math. In vocal competitions, I was praised for my strict tempos. As a pianist, I was hailed for my rigid fingerings. That day, as I came to the end of a long, romantic Brahmsian phrase, my vocal teacher shook her head and grimaced, like at a nasty smell. "No, my Junge, think of the Christkindl in the manger." I had no idea what some of that foreign mumbo-jumbo meant, except it wasn't Spanish. In Dallas, that meant it had to be classy. I heard manger. I tried to picture a nativity scene. There was a nice one at the mall, plastic figures in jewel tones. I finished on a long, clear note. "Ausgezeichnet," she said, all teeth and bite. "You must have a wonderful summer." I started to go, safe in my competence. Und, Schatzi, never change. She was so bogus. Were all Germans like this? I'd accepted Jesus as my personal savior. I was done changing, except for one more hurdle. A family conference with my counselor, a peroxide-dipped functionary who'd given me a bunch of weird tests. Which of the following triangles matches this one? Which word is misspelled in this sentence? I made it down the linoleum hall without tripping. I was a preteen colossus. I stationed myself at the school's front doors. My parents drove up in a limousine-long Chevy Impala. Dad put the white walls parallel to the curb. Despite the heat, Mother got out in a canvas dress and thick hose. She was never Mom. She sniffed at chumminess and spoke in complete sentences. Except in extreme situations, she avoided contractions. Decent people do not use slang, she explained. And we believed we were the textbook definition of decency. White, Protestant, Texan, middle class. Mother walked up, assessed the state of my clothes, found them unsullied, and touched my shoulder. A kiss would have been unthinkable in public. Dad shimmied his wide tie against his throat. "Let's do this," he said. Another thing on the long schedule his secretary had typed for him every day. I led them to my counselor's desk, stashed in a wing of the auditorium. The first of the budget cuts that would eviscerate American education had just taken effect. Harried, she explained why I, an honor student, tested so poorly in language arts. Dyslexic, she said, a diagnosis before it was an industry. Fortunately, mild, but there are ways to deal with his illiteracy. She bit her lower lip to underline the severity of her solution. He should read more. Read, we three squawked. My brain worked better in theorems and equations. I got an A in English by memorizing every detail. She passed a sheaf of results across the desk and stood up to dismiss us. "Here's my parting shot," she said. Parthian, I corrected. Parthian shot. She zeroed in on me. "Get busy." I flushed. I was busy. I was president of science this and vice president of math that. I had a part in the school play, played the trumpet in this sextet, the oboe in that octet, and the piano for Sunday night services. I kept a stressed-out overachiever's schedule long before helicopter parents. Sensing my outrage, Dad preempted it. "We'll do our best," he said. It was hardly a promise, more like our lifestyle. Even so, my counselor wasn't impressed. "Oh, don't worry," she said, already distracted with someone else's file. "But good books preferably, although anything will do." That was a relief. We Dallasites didn't cotton to the canon in the 70s, although Lee Harvey Oswald and a certain book depository had put us on the map. Still, my parents had assembled a collection of Reader's Digest condensed books, mass-market bestsellers cut down to 100 pages or so, and collected in faux leather volumes. They filled the wall-mount bookshelves in our den, hanging over our heads as we watched TV. So whenever the June sun irradiated our street and made it too hot for a pickup football game, I took my counselor's advice and carried a volume to my room. I pulled a folding chair to my desk, clicked on a gooseneck lamp, and adhered to a strict schedule. Read 20 minutes today, read 25 minutes tomorrow, read 40 minutes each day next week, wind up the alarm clock, bring, done, even mid-sentence, because illiteracy, like everything else, could be solved with dogged determination. I had to be godlier today than yesterday, and master antebellum-style manners, and memorize chunks of the Bible, and prepare myself to be the perfect husband, and go to church umpteen times a week, and maintain a 4.0, all so I could smelt the dross out of my life and ensure I didn't make any mistakes, secular or sacred. The road to hell may have been paved with good intentions, but the one to heaven was prone to hairline fractures. I also excelled at a Christian version of 70s self-help. Dear Abby fused with Jesus. Once, when members of my class got to choose a book for keeps off a rack outside the auditorium, I picked I'm Okay, You're Okay. I kept it stashed in my tote next to a pocket-sized New Testament, reading a paragraph here or a verse there whenever I needed them, like when I got a B+ on a test. Or when I tripped and fumbled the football because the street's cracked concrete was more dangerous than a flat floor. Or when I penciled, "Want to go steady?" on a certs, and my girlfriend took the thing from me and sucked it so slowly that I had to run cold water over my head in the bathroom to keep from passing out. One afternoon, after I'd worked up to a full hour of reading, I finished one condensed novel, turned the page, and start at the next.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?